This podcast includes graphic depictions of true crime cases and may contain explicit language. Listener discretion is advised. Everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of We Saw the Devil. This is Robin.
This is Jackie.
And for this episode, we will be covering everything that has transpired over the last week since our previous episode.
Indeed.
We will be talking court documents, the different tributes that have come, and as well as just random news bits from the last week. And then, as always, for our Patreons, we will be pivoting at the end of the show. Check your Patreon feed, and we will have the afterthought segment where we will continue speculating and giving our opinions.
I want you to join us with the afterthoughts. I love that you guys support us, and we want to give you so much.
A shout out to our newest patrons over the last week. That would be Janet, Julie, Jessica, Shauna, Noni, Dr. Valent, Chris, Faye, and Linda. And we sincerely so much appreciate your support. You guys have absolutely no idea.
I want to thank all of you for becoming a Patreon and continued support. It makes me so happy to see all of you interacting on our Patreon only group. And I love getting to know each and every one of you. And I know Robin does as well, right?
I guess. No, I'm kidding. But thank you so much again, guys. If you are interested in checking out our Patreon, that's patreon.com/We Saw the Devil. There are various benefits and tiers for as little as $3 a month. And then you can also get a postcard from our case of the month. And this month, I know most of you have already gotten your postcards, but we are going to Washington, D.C. with this case. So what case do you think we're doing?
Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
Exactly. Let's go ahead and get into it. Before we do that, you can find us on Twitter at We Saw the Devil. You can find us on Instagram at We Saw the Devil Podcast, and also on Facebook at We Saw the Devil. Let's go ahead and get into it. So I guess the big head news this over the last week is that Chad he actually ended up pleading not guilty.
Can you believe that?
Which doesn't that kind of shoot the argument that his attorney made of that he left his property the day of the search on the 9th to turn himself in?
I flabbergasted. As the evidence is rolling out, it's pretty obvious where it's going to lead.
I think so, but the great thing about the American justice system is that you are innocent until proven guilty.
And he believes he's innocent.
Yeah.
How many of you out there listening right now believe he is innocent? I want to know.
Yeah, if you guys, if any of you listeners think that Chad or Lori, for that matter, are innocent in the deaths of the children, please reach out to us and let us know your reasoning. Because there have been people online in various forums and whatnot who are saying that Chad is innocent.
I think it's good that we keep our personal opinion aside.
Mm-hmm.
He decided to take the not guilty plea on the 12th, right?
That is correct. It'll be very interesting to see where this goes. The exact wording on that document was from his attorney, John Pryor. And the document just shortly says, "You will please take notice that John Pryor hereby enters his appearance as the attorney of record for the defendant in the above entitled action. The defendant hereby enters a plea of not guilty to the charges." That was dated June 12th, 2020.
Hey, at least I didn't mess that up.
Yeah, we will see. So that was the big, legal news of the week, is that we officially have a not guilty. Beyond that, it looks like Colby, I know that over the last week, people were wondering when Colby was going to come out and make a statement. Colby being the brother of Tylee and more or less kind of stepbrother of JJ. And it was the sweetest, most beautiful tribute, and it made me cry. I feel so heavily for Colby.
What about it made you cry?
It's just so sweet and sincere, and he clearly loved both of those kids very, very much. He included some pictures with it, and I know that he was particularly close with Tylee. I mean, that was his sister. Yeah, and then you have the whole story about how, he would text her, and it's speculated that Lori had potentially, killed or incapacitated Tylee.
Yeah.
At that point that she was still texting Colby. So it's just really sad. And my heart breaks for Colby, the Woodcocks, and all of the family members.
Oh, I bet the Woodcocks are just devastated.
Every time I see Larry talk, I cry. And furthermore, too, regarding that, we want to hear from you. So every episode that we make, obviously we publish up to, say, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify. It goes everywhere like that, right? So we post every episode that we have also on YouTube. And we've gotten a handful of comments on our YouTube videos of people asking us why we take it so easy on the Woodcocks. Also stating that the Woodcocks are somehow involved.
There's no evidence. There's no proof. There's not one shred of anything that has come out against the Woodcocks, right?
Yeah.
It's really hard to sit here and say they have negative involvement. They've been actually really involved in a positive way of trying to find
The children, yeah.
JJ. It's mostly JJ. I hate to say it, but I mean, my only gripe is that it's mostly them caring about JJ. They don't really mention Tylee as much, which is, I understand blood is blood, but really at the end of the day, it's kind of like, hey, there's another one there too.
Yeah.
I do find that piece to be a little odd, but yeah, it's extremely normal for most families who have that kind of blood and non-blood relation. So everything's relatively normal in that regard. And I think that the fact that they have been so adamant and proactive about trying to find JJ
From the beginning.
Yeah, and always at the hearings, always involved, always making statements, and they've been very involved in the media. I don't see how they could have a negative involvement. And I'm not saying that we're not being brainwashed or maybe eluded or, maybe they didn't know anything. We don't know. That would be overreaching and overstretching the truth to believe that they have any negative involvement.
Yeah, I don't get it, guys. So if any of you are in the camp that there's something heinously wrong with the Woodcocks, please kindly reach out and let us know why you think that. Because all I'm seeing is two grandparents who just wanted JJ to call his pawpaw. And
Aww.
It's so sad. And I feel like they've been pushing, they got wind that something was gravely wrong. And then they actually tried really, really hard to correct it and figure out what was going on.
My grandparents have done the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of you out there would have had grandparents that the same thing.
Yeah. My grandmother, it would have been like scorched earth policy had I disappeared, So I don't know. So the next thing too, and this was really weird, is so Nate Eaton of East Idaho News spoke with an author who worked with Chad Daybell, and her name was Suzanne Freeman. And she did a quick Zoom or Skype interview with Nate, and she basically she worked with Chad, and Chad had bought the rights to her book and was publishing them with his company. She claims that she noticed that Chad was associating with fringe authors, fringe people with beliefs that she thought were just terrible. And so she wanted her rights back. And so she and Chad went back and forth. She was just trying to get her rights back. She wrote to Chad and said, if you continue to publish this material, there will be death and sorrow. And Chad replied with, I'm sorry you're so bitter. And she published 3 books with Chad, but then he started publishing material and working with people that she didn't like, that Suzanne didn't like. She, like I said, wanted her rights back. She went back and forth with him. And she said she signed up for a vow initially because apparently a lot of the Preparing a People and, readers, right, like reader base of their books were in the avow forum.
Mm-hmm.
And she says that she had to get off of it because of how toxic and awful it was.
Oh, I believe it.
And that if she ever stood up for, say, hey, the beliefs, this isn't kosher, these beliefs aren't, really LDS or accepted, she would get attacked and swarmed on by other people. I just found her entire interview to be so fame-seeking. And she, at one point in the interview, she said, it's so weird that I predicted such a thing. No.
Yeah, and then she started to elaborate how she is blunt. She's like, everyone says I'm blunt. And I'm like, okay, we get it. You're blunt.
All right.
And I think she was nervous. I think some of it was nerves. Absolutely. But on the other hand, so she started over elaborating of how she believed that it was going to end up being like hillbillies in the hills.
Yeah.
Or like hills have eyes or something weird. And I was just kind of like, what are you going with this? And she's like, I just can't believe I predicted that. And she does state in the interview that people have come to her asking her about her visions. She's like,
I know.
And then she literally shoots herself in the foot and she's like, I can't do that. I don't want to do that.
It's so weird.
She's an odd personality, that's for sure. Or at least she presents to be, you know. I know that a lot of people get in front of the camera and they completely freak out. And she seemed to be kind of starstruck by Nate Eaton.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I think she really likes him. And I know a lot of people who would react the same way. And
yeah, she was an interesting interview. I feel like a lot of people are going to come out of the woodwork now for their 5 minutes of fame. Julie Rowe being one of those. This week, I swear to God, you guys, Julie Rowe is everywhere.
She's acting like a victim's advocate.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's coming out and just trying to play the here I am and I'm talking about this cause, and it's so sad for these victims
and so sad for the children. This is a rough week. Oh. Julie Rowe has very little involvement other than working with Chad, and under Chad, he published some of her books. Apparently, my understanding from what you wonderful members of the current members of the LDS Church, Julie Rowe was more popular than Chad. That Julie Rowe had a more well-known name than Chad Daybell, and then the roles apparently reversed. And then the Lori stuff happened, and so on and so forth. Don't forget that when we were starting to cover this, Julie Rowe put out a statement supporting Chad, saying that he was a great guy. You know, she just can't fathom that he would do anything, and he was great. Well, that changed very, very, very quickly. And like 2 weeks later, she put out another statement saying that she left him and he was terrible. Like she left his book company and it was all terrible. So I don't know. I mean, Julie Rowe is pretty much everywhere. I'm very proud of her for venturing outside of her vehicle.
And that's an ongoing joke, okay, in case people are not aware.
Yeah, that is the ongoing joke, if you see, is that Julie Rowe is always in her car. And before people jump down my throat on that, I realize why. You know, your car parked somewhere has better acoustics, and you can actually get, pretty good audio quality if you're streaming live.
Can you really?
Yes.
Wow.
So I understand why she probably does it, but it's still funny nonetheless because I think she is insane. So moving on, just to cover another piece of East Idaho news. So East Idaho News, Nate Eaton interviewed Jennifer Shen, the former director of the San Diego Police Department Crime Lab. And she also teaches forensic psychology there. And it was a very good interview. I mean, it was very basic, kind of 101. But he asks her basically about what the grave site, the dig site would be like. And basically, she kind of goes through the rundown as far as when you recover a body at a gravesite, your entire purpose is to maximize the evidence. So it's incredibly meticulous. And you're trying to look for any parts of the bodies, anything added, buried, a weapon, fibers, hair, debris, basically anything that can link back to who the murderer was. She also brings up cadaver dogs. And stating the obvious, cadaver dogs are trained to smell the scent of bodies. And apparently, I learned that they are especially useful in cases of large property. I thought that a cadaver dog would be brought in, say, on a smaller property to kind of pinpoint the exact spot. Not the case. Apparently, cadaver dogs are for the large properties. They'll, make a hit. They can use the GPR to further kind of, narrow down the exact spot, and then they go to town from there. So that was actually a very insightful interview, I found.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that. What did they do with the remains?
So on the 9th, the remains were taken to Boise, and then on Saturday is when it was officially confirmed to be the children. And don't forget that by the end of basically the 9th, everyone knew that it was pretty much the two children.
Well, the mayor didn't help.
The mayor did not help. The mayor let that cat right out of the bag. And then the remains were taken to Boise, and then Saturday is when it was officially confirmed. Nate asked Jennifer Shen if they were recognizable, if the children were recognizable, or if it could have been the dental records. And then Jennifer said that it could have been clothing, jewelry, dental records, size, stature, hair. But most often, anytime remains are exhumed, it's actually, she says, dental records are the most common method of identification.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. I thought it'd be DNA.
Mm-hmm. And I would also like to take this moment to state that any information that we have or we have presented previously is factual. Now, this is either directly from investigative reports or legal documents or looking up, say, law, like statutes of a particular state. And then, as stated earlier, we are in contact with multiple members of the family and also friends of the family. So anytime we personally speculate or say anything non-factual, we do say speculation. It's almost like our buzzer word, right?
Yeah.
Now entering speculation town. But anything else that we state on this show is factual, based on things from family and friends. So that being said, on the day that the children were found, a source that we have, they did state that JJ was found intact. It seems like JJ, and then we will discuss this in our afterthoughts episode in more, graphic detail, I guess, of what we think happened and additional things that we have heard. But it seems like JJ was easily identifiable, and then possibly dental records, potentially for Tylee.
Unfortunate possibilities.
So Nathan asks her and says, well, Chad has been charged with destruction of evidence. Any idea why we don't have any additional charges yet? And, she again confirms what we've already discussed on the show, is that you have to charge at the level that you can achieve, right? So a prosecutor will start off with charges that they know that they can likely win in court. So basically, they're still building the case. They probably have a literal crap ton of evidence, and they're trying to now flesh out the case. Now they have the children's remains. Pretty much any search warrant at this point is going to get approved.
Well, that's what a good prosecution does.
Exactly. So you only start at the level that you can achieve. And they'll start with this lower charge of destruction, concealment of evidence. They know that they can make that. And then as the investigation goes on, they'll continue to add additional charges. Now, that also goes for Lori Vallow. She can absolutely see additional charges. And, honestly, she probably will here shortly.
I mean, beyond it just being speculation, it is very common for a case to be built like this, and then for her to see the additional charges come in as the more evidence webs out, because now that they have this door open and found the bodies and stuff, it would be very unlikely, as we can see in past cases of something of similar nature, for there to not be additional charges. So that's where we're getting that.
Yes, exactly. Nate also asks her about Tammy Daybell's autopsy and asks her if it's common for an autopsy to take this long, because a lot of people are wondering why is this taking so long? If you recall, Tammy Daybell's body was exhumed, and then Alex Cox died the day after. So why then did Alex's come back and Tammy Daybell's has not? Jennifer Shen said that it just basically depends on how complex it is and what poisons and toxins were used. Poison can take a very, very long time to analyze, and especially if there's a backlog. So the way that she described it is that not every medical examiner's office can just test for poison, right? It has to be sent off to labs. Tissue samples are sent off to various labs. Some in the country, some labs actually specialize in different types of poisons and in tests and whatnot. So it is actually possible that her tissue samples were sent off to, say 4 or 5 different labs, and testing for a variety of different toxins and poisons.
It's very interesting that you bring that up, actually. I was wondering why it was taking so long myself, and then Iris mentioned that it's probably from all the testing that they're doing, and I had no idea what the testing actually entails until right now.
It entails a lot.
I didn't know that they had. Do they sometimes send it overseas? To some of these labs?
That I have not heard of, but I did look, and so a lot of these labs actually have a backlog. So I was looking at the response time of some of these labs, and some of them actually are months backlog. Oh. So it is possible. I mean, depending, I don't know, but it is possible that Tammy's autopsy was sent off and she wasn't a priority at that time.
It's kind of speculation.
Yeah, it's interesting. So that could be a reason why Tammy Daybell's autopsy is not yet public or ready.
I'll be very curious when that comes out.
Okay, so Morgan Lowe of CBS Arizona also recently reported that Janice and Barry Cox, Lori Vallow's parents, their home was searched in St. George, Utah, right before Chad's home was searched.
What?
Yeah, that's super, super, super interesting to me. Because don't forget, Janice, in one of her interviews, said, well, I spoke with JJ on October 1st. And then she tried to bust out that, bullshit phone bill and so on and so forth. She showed her entire public phone bill and then highlighted a date and time just to prove it. None of us are stupid. We know that it's possible that she could have just called and talked to Lori. So that was interesting that Barry and Janice's home was searched. I had no idea.
Yeah, I had no idea either. I actually find it to be interesting what they're actually looking for too. And that alone is suspicious. Like anytime your home gets searched by the FBI, you're probably heading for trouble.
Now also, so everyone knows that, speaking of search warrants, okay? So, we know the language of particularly egregious, right? So everyone pretty much knows at this point and believes that it was Tylee's. And that is also coming from law enforcement sources, multiple now, who have stated that.
Yeah, and we mentioned that in the last episode too. We talked about egregious and how we feel about that.
So the Court TV actually did a recent interview over the last couple of days where they returned to Rexburg and the townhouse area, the townhouse that Lori Vallow, Melanie Boudreau, they all lived in, the townhouse complex, right? So there are new renters or tenants in the townhome that belong to Lori Vallow. And what happened? The police served a search warrant on these new tenants to look in the crawl space.
Crawl space of a crawl space.
Of a crawl space. The way that they described it is that there was a crawl space within the crawl space.
I wonder, maybe they got a layout or a tip? I wonder how they...
It's very odd.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around it. Why do you need to get in there? Unless they believe that maybe they were hiding something?
Yes.
Okay.
So interesting. Again, we will discuss more of our thoughts on that in the afterthoughts. So another two-parter that happened this week is that Melanie Gibb wrote a letter and posted it in a vow. And she basically just warns everyone about Chad Daybell and his teachings, warns them not to be deceived. And it has a whole lot of scripture in it. And then she also made several claims here, okay? She said that, quote, he created a portal and would ask questions with a pendulum. I saw him twice with a gold-colored pointy pendulum with a string attached. The last time I saw Chad and Lori, he asked questions with a pendulum to see if people were light or dark. That was troubling to me. I thought, this is how he gets his answers? He told Lori that Peter, James, and John came to him in 2017 in the mountains. Now, Jackie, when you think of someone using a dowsing pendulum, what do you think of?
I think that they're trying to find water.
It's everything, every type of resource, gold even, oil, water.
Well, we know he's trying to make money regardless with his ideas. That was the whole point of him even selling the books, right?
But pendulums are very much a massive, massive, massive part of New Age spirituality.
Oh, yeah.
Wicca, paganism, like the whole bit.
Yeah, and you can tell what sex your baby is before it's born even. I'm pretty sure if you swing it around, you can find out when you're going to have your menstrual
cycle.
Yeah, like, is the moon going to be full tomorrow? I don't know. Hey, I'm not trying to sound ignorant or anything about pendulums, okay? But I will say this, is that it's really telltale that somebody is even doing anything like that and trying to say they have answers, okay? First of all, he comes out and he says he acts like a visionary. And then there's people following him. I mean, how many people have done that in the past and people get killed? Yeah.
Dowsing is a very common thing. I looked it up, and to try to find any sort of Mormon connection or a connection to LDS doctrine, right? Because as we will discuss again in our afterthoughts, I am pretty much drawing a conclusion of what I think Chad was and where I think this is going. And the pendulum dowsing history actually goes back all the way to 6000 BC. What? There are cave drawings in Algeria that actually show someone using a dowsing rod. And then it goes to 2200 BC. Chinese emperor would use it for geopathic stress zones. pendulums have been used basically nonstop to find oils, minerals, water. Water was very, very important, so on and so forth. I have not found anything related to Mormon doctrine regarding a pendulum. If any of you current LDS members out there are aware of this, please point me in the right direction. Again, you can email us at wesawthedevil@gmail.com. I want to learn more about this because I have some theories on my own. But I did find that was very interesting. I mean, that is a very, very common pagan and Wiccan practice.
I agree. Yeah, no, it absolutely is.
And even Melanie Gibb was even disturbed by it. So that was interesting.
Do you think she was just... What's interesting about Melanie Gibb, as we recall from her interview, she was rather convinced still of the teachings. It was almost like her face would light up when she would have to describe anything of Chad and Lori when it comes to their beliefs and their teachings. She still believes it.
Oh, yeah, she does.
I mean, just based on her bodily reaction, I believe anybody would agree with me. So I'm not trying to overreach when I state that. What I will say is that what's really interesting about her coming out with statements like this is that, okay, so you just are now saying something about this? So now the children have been found. You want to come out and now say it's weird? I think you probably should have said something way sooner than this.
Yeah.
That hurts my heart, to think that after seeing her interview, I really feel that she's omitting information.
Hardcore.
I'm not trying to speculate, you guys. It is speculation technically, but when you've lived on this planet and you've met a lot of people and you know how to call bullshit, I call bullshit.
We actually rewatched Melanie Gibb's interview to get another perspective on, since everything has come out. Obviously, there's the confirmation bias, right? So, same thing with Alex Cox's death. His death was suspicious, considering the timing, considering his associates, considering what he was expected or suspected of doing. And so, therefore, we just can't grasp the fact that he could have potentially died naturally. I admit that there could be some confirmation bias going into rewatching the Melanie Gibb interview because we know now. But I don't think so, because there are many, many, many discrepancies in what she has said. If you put what she said against Summer Shiflett and Janice Cox, statements they've made, or Melanie Pulowski, all of these people are lying.
About what? What in particular makes you feel like she's telling a lie? What lie is...
Melanie Gibb?
Yeah.
I think that the way that she met Lori and Chad was a lie. I think her body language, Melanie, everybody has, and I'm not a behaviorist, but behaviorists have evaluated Melanie, at least video of her, right? And Jackie actually pointed it out. She clenches her jaw whenever there's talk about the children or anything uncomfortable or, that would go against her teaching. She kind of clenches up.
She clenched her jaw really bad when she was asked about JJ and Tylee, and she started talking about it. And then she took on, I don't know if anyone else would agree with me, okay? Because this is my own observation, and my observation could be wrong. So therefore, I will state this, is that she did clench her jaw when she was asked about JJ and Tylee, and she also did shorten her answers very quickly.
She loved talking about Chad and Lori.
Oh, she would go on all day long, but when talking about the children, she just... Nope. I just saw it. And we could be like, okay, maybe it's nerves. No, it's not nerves. No. This is really far into the interview, and I found it to be kind of weird. Okay, I didn't feel right, and I was like, wait, does she know more than she is leading on? And I hate to try and speculate that in a case like this, but you know what? Like, if it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, right? It's probably a duck.
I would say it's a duck. I would absolutely say that Melanie Gibb is a duck. Now, don't forget something that was published yesterday, actually, in the True Crime Underground group, is that a picture has been taken at Lori's house. And both Kay Woodcock and Annie Cushing have verified that this was taken at Charles and Lori's home. Charles was out of town with JJ for the weekend. And who do we see in this picture? We see Lori, Melanie Gibb, Mr. Potato Head himself, Chad Daybell, and Zulema. And they're all eating cookies because apparently Lori Vallow's cookies must taste like sunshine, rainbows, and unicorn farts because she's always like making cookies for people.
I want someone to make cookies for me. Not Lori Vallow, though. No. I don't want that. Like, hold the poison, please. Thank you. But yeah, I think it's weird.
I feel like Melanie Gibb has held back everything that she knew. All of it. Like, Jackie, wasn't it weird that Melanie Gibb hasn't really spoken to the children? I mean, she hasn't spoken to the children.
Can I state something right here, right now?
Yeah.
The most odd thing that she said in that whole interview was that this was one of Lori's larger homes. And if you don't remember in the interview her saying that, that's okay. But she did say that.
Yeah, she did.
And that indicates that Lori has multiple large homes or has multiple homes. Nobody knows about that. What's with that? I mean, that's just from her own mouth. Her own words are saying that. Excuse me.
Because Melanie did not know Lori when she was with Joseph Ryan.
Yeah.
She did not know Lori when she was with anyone else other than Charles.
So this raises, I'm not going to speculate, okay, but this raises a lot of questions in my head. If anyone else has questions about that, let me know.
Yeah, or if we're wrong somehow, and this is nothing, let us know that too. But it was a very odd statement to make.
I picked up on that immediately. I was like, wait, hold on. Because it felt like when the mayor literally revealed that it was the kids.
Because it's one thing to say, Melanie Gibb only met Lori while she was with Charles. So according, supposedly for Melanie Gibb, she should know about Lori. She wouldn't have a reference point. Right. Well, that was one of her bigger homes. We could say, okay, well, Melanie Gibb, Joseph Ryan had a bigger house. You know what I mean? Or a big house too. Melanie Gibb didn't know, supposedly. So what does she mean by that?
I'm mind blown, right? I'm confused. Actually, is more of a better descriptor of what I feel. I'm confused as to why she would even say that. That's not an accident. The thing about Melanie Gibb in her interview, and when she speaks at all, she's very purposeful with her language.
Yes.
She has always been very purposeful. Whether she realizes that she's revealing, but here's the thing, she's not good at hiding her feelings.
No. Most people aren't.
No, and she's definitely not one of those people, and she definitely believes in the doctrine still that Chad was teaching.
Yes.
She does, it seems that she does believe some of the fundamentals of the LDS too. Mm-hmm. And she'll always fall back on that. It's easy for a lot of people. But I'm just saying, what the?
Yeah.
Why are you saying that Lori has larger homes?
Mm-hmm. That's true. It's interesting. So yeah, take that and get back to us on that one. Now, also, so Melanie Gibb, had her interview. She came out with a statement and a vow. And then in turn, Annie Cushing wrote and published a, quote, sort of open letter to Melanie Gibb. And it basically outlines a lot of her inconsistencies, behaviors, and just overall tone deafness of how Annie perceives that Melanie Gibb has acted. And it's in the True Crime Underground group. Annie Cushing did say, don't post it, don't share it, don't do anything. If it gets out, I will hunt you down and basically take your firstborn. So we will not read that or go over that. But if you are in the True Crime Underground group, or you have interest in being in the True Crime Underground group to read that, I suggest that you do it. She pretty much nails Melanie Gibb to a wall and kind of flushes out all of her crap. I mean, Melanie Gibb, and she points out how Melanie Gibb lies multiple times. There are times when she knew information and should have done something about it. So I think it's just kind of outlining Melanie Gibb's potential culpability in all of this. And I, again, will respect Annie Cushing's wishes on not sharing it, but seek it out. It's in the True Crime Underground group.
Do you agree with Annie Cushing's view on that?
I do. Okay, so we've gotten a handful of questions about Jason Mao. So Olivia on our Instagram, shout out to you, Olivia, asks, what do you guys think of Jason Mao? And I'm going to go ahead and insert her question here, okay? Because it is relevant to Melanie Gibb as a whole. So Olivia on Instagram says, what do you guys think of Jason Mao? He interviewed both Lori and Melanie Gibb back in November of 2018. He was a speaker at the same conferences Chad would go to and is pretty obsessed over the, quote, elite army and boasts of his time in the military. Most of his stories seem super inflamed, in my opinion, as a veteran myself. He's also an ex-cop from Arizona and maybe taught Lori how to deal with the police in Chandler. And then she gives us his Instagram accounts and whatnot. Well, first of all, thank you for your service. And number 2, Melanie claims that she met Lori on her own. Jason Mao has been taking credit for introducing Lori and Melanie, and he basically takes credit for all of it. And then he has, his podcast, and he podcasted with Melanie Gibb. I personally feel like Jason Mao is a central part to all of this. I think that, with back in when Charles's truck was stolen, when his bank account was flushed out, I think that Jason Mao was possibly a consultant on how to basically get away with that and deal with that. He's obviously into some batshit fringe beliefs too. And I think that Melanie Gibb as a whole, relating it back to what we were just talking about in her interviews and whatnot, it kind of proves Melanie Gibb to be a liar. Like, she's not being forthright. I believe that the way that a lot of these people met is being lied about. And I want to know how all of these people met.
Why do you think that?
Well, Jason Mao came out and was like, taking credit for introducing people. And then Melanie Gibb's like, oh, no, I just met her on my own. Like, it doesn't make sense,
I'm not going to lie, but a lot of the beliefs don't make sense either. These people are kind of senseless, so...
Where I will separate from Annie Cushing is, so in her letter, again, go read it, True Crime Underground, she basically tries to draw a parallel, and she's made multiple posts of this in other groups too. So Jason Mao was in a movie called Speak No Evil. He was a set medic because of his law enforcement work, and he also acted in it. And the movie is called Speak No Evil. It was in 2013, and the synopsis is, when all the children in a small town become possessed, one mother refuses to believe that her daughter is lost to the devil and will do anything it takes to keep her alive. He played an officer, like Officer Man, a police officer in the film. And, wow, Annie Cushing, you must be a yoga instructor because what a stretch. Because Annie Cushing believes that the zombie element to Chad's cult comes from the teachings of Jason Mao. I think that's such a stretch. Just because Jason Mao was in a movie about, and first of all, it was possessed, not necessarily like zombies. I just find that to be such a stretch.
I know that they believe that Charles had an unclaimed spirit named Ned Snyder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I could see that possibility. I won't not discount it, right? But I don't see the zombies out of a movie that has nothing to do with zombies, okay?
Yeah, it's demonic possession. So
is Exorcist. The show was all about that too in the movie. Should we say that that's what they based it on too? It's just going a little over.
I feel like that's truly reaching. I mean, I feel like that's truly way too speculative and out there. But yeah, so Annie Cushing's open letter is like, damn, go girl, you go. Her stating that the See No Evil movie is possibly the creation of Chad's zombie stuff, I think is an absolute reach. Let's get to spousal privilege. Hard change here, but let's get to spousal privilege, because a lot of people are wondering if Lori and Chad are both charged with, say, murder of the children. Mm-hmm. What kind of information and whatnot could be gathered? Like, what information, how is this going to work? Spousal privilege. Now, this could be for Ian and Melanie Pawlowski. I have to say, we still don't know if Lori and Chad were legally wed. If they sign legal papers, like marriage license.
What's interesting is that a lot of the time you can find marriage license online.
Yes.
For almost anybody. In the past or the future. Not future, but you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I've even found friends' marriage stuff when I forgot when their anniversaries were.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to be real sneaky and look like a good friend.
Yeah. Life tip, guys.
Life tip, but... I've tried to look, and I haven't found any information or marriage certificate, no online evidence at least, unless somebody has access to city records that we don't, or has like some sort of tip on how to find it. I don't know. I'm at a loss on that, unless the LDS doesn't keep anything away from the city, so it's not like it wouldn't be within the city data.
Right. Well, in Chad and Lori in particular supposedly got married in Hawaii. I guess it's possible that the person who married them on the beach could have been their witness and helped sign their license. I don't know Do any of you know? I have asked every single person. I have asked family members attached to this case. I have asked many, many people, and no one knows if they were actually married. They would get a whole host of spousal privileges, right? Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, though, is that there are exceptions to spousal privilege. And let's pretend, just theoretically for a moment, that Chad and Lori were married legally. They got the paperwork done. The exceptions to the spousal testimonial privilege exists where, and it's number 2 in the Idaho statute for exceptions to spousal testimony, is if either spouse is charged with a crime against a child of either spouse. So basically what I'm saying is that if Chad Daybell, we'll say, is accused of murdering these children, then Lori Vallow would have to spill every bean that she has on him. There's no spousal privilege there. It doesn't matter. Like, spousal privilege will not come into play in this case in any capacity, is what I'm saying.
That's interesting.
So the exceptions, let's pretend again that they're married. The exceptions from spousal testimony of she and Chad having to testify against each other is if one of them is charged with a crime against the other spouse, is charged with a crime against a child of either spouse. So that would end it right there, you know? Mm-hmm. Is charged with a crime against a third party in the course of committing a crime against the other spouse, is asked to testify about matters predating the marriage, is charged with human trafficking or prostitution. And in any of those situations, even current spouses may be compelled to testify against an accused spouse. So basically, guys, get the spousal privilege thing off your radar. It is not going to happen. They are going to be fully allowed to go off. So I just wanted to bring that up really quickly.
My honest opinion, I'm led to believe that they may not be married.
I don't think so.
Interesting.
Yeah. So let's move on to a legal document.
Okay.
So Chad's attorney, John Pryor, made a request for a discovery, and he's asking for records, documents, books, photos, tangible objects in possession of the state in connection to the defendant. So
very basic.
Yeah.
Very typical.
Exactly. So just Chad's attorney just is like, reaching out, hey, we want to know everything you have on Chad. The interesting part of that particular document is he said also this is a direct quote, any written or recorded statements of a co-defendant, if any. Mm-hmm. Quote, the substance of any relevant oral statement made by any co-defendant, whether before, after arrest, in response to interrogation by any person known by the co-defendant to be a peace officer or agent of the prosecuting attorney.
Well, it sounds like he's trying to gather every little piece of everything so he can put together his case and defense for Chad.
Yeah.
I mean, John Pryor, who happens to have a legal prior, is putting together a case. Now, for those of you who are not very familiar with the court process or new to it, a lot of the time when any type of lawyer is involved in a case, they will make a motion for discovery. There's a discovery period, and that is when they acquire any documents. They can request only very specific things if they do care to. Mm-hmm. But typically they want to have a good scope of everything. So
no, that's true. No. And this is something that one of our patrons actually brought to us over the last week is John Pryor, Chad's attorney, and Mark Means, Lori's attorney, they share the same office. Their office has the same address. So it could be possible. Their office building could stand for Mark Leroy Means, Lori's attorney. It's a 1,221 square foot office, and it's owned by MLM Investments. So I have no idea. Again, that's just speculation. However, both Chad and Lori's attorneys have the same address. So I also, and this is another question that we got from Instagram, is do I believe that Mark Means is going to excuse himself or leave?
What do you think?
What do you think, Jackie?
Do I think he is?
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know.
I think so. I believe that Mark Means is going to excuse himself faster than you can breathe. He is obviously clearly incompetent. He's just a running butt of jokes. And not just because it's Lori Vallow's attorney, it's because he is literally incompetent. He's also a family attorney, a general attorney, and I think very, very, very quickly this investigation is going to move into a murder trial.
Oh, of course he's going to excuse himself.
Yeah.
You have to. You have to in that case. I mean, it's going to be a murder investigation regardless. There's no way that it would go any other scenario unless there's some weird freak possession story that we're missing here.
Which is highly unlikely.
Yeah, this isn't The Conjuring.
No. I guess I'd like to tie it up, guys. The last thing that I find really interesting, and I can't wait to see if it's published, is at the storage facility where we've gotten the little clips from, Chad touching Lori's butt and them taking the car seat out and putting it in and, all the good juicy photos and whatnot and video clips. They have more footage. They said that there was a whole host of visits of Chad, Alex, and Lori to and fro that storage facility.
They also were able to enhance it. Nate Eaton was able to discuss some of the video through East Idaho News, and they enhanced the video, and they discerned the difference between Alex and Chad. They were also able to discern a tire that they moved and made the connection to the Jeep.
Yeah, it's true.
And how that changes the whole logistics of the shooting.
There's going to be a lot of information coming out here soon, so we look forward to that. All right, guys, so that's it for this episode. Again, this episode will be available on YouTube if you would like to listen to it again or just share it there. And you can find us at We Saw the Devil on Facebook and Twitter, and We Saw the Devil podcast on Instagram. We are now going to pivot over to our Afterthought segment for our Patreon.
Join us,
patrons, and we have a lot to talk about there now too. So again, if you are interested in becoming a Patreon, you can sign up at patreon.com/We Saw the Devil. And basically, you can subscribe for as little as $3 a month. You get cool stuff like postcards and merch and t-shirts and private Facebook discussion groups. And also, your support makes the show better. Like, we hope to hire an editor, a sound person to give you the best podcast that we can. So, please support us. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for listening.
Until next crime.